We are expecting more cases of coronavirus here in the UK. There's no doubt that this is a marathon, not a sprint. We expect more cases in the UK, so people shouldn't be surprised when they see more cases in the UK. We're taking all the action that the scientists advise is relevant. We're taking a belt and braces type approach, for instance, putting people into quarantine when they've come back from Wuhan to make sure that they don't end up infecting others. And we have plans in place to deal with it. But this is clearly a very serious virus, and in China we've been bringing people back from Wuhan, which is the epicenter of the epidemic in China. But the number of cases is doubling around every 5 days, and therefore we think that it is important to give the advice that people should come back from China if they can and avoid all but essential travel to China. The risk of catching this virus outside of Wuhan in China is currently much lower than in Wuhan, but the number of cases is rising, and as I say, doubling every 5 days. So we're taking a precautionary approach and giving people this advice.
And what happens for those people when they come back? Obviously the danger is they may be sick, they're not arriving in any kind of structured way. How on earth do we keep track of it?
Well, they are arriving in commercial airlines, and we meet each plane. We make sure that they get the advice that is given by the scientists, which is that if they get any symptoms, however small, they should go home and self-isolate and call 111. NHS 111 is now available right across the country 24/7. It has GPs at the other end of the line, so that you don't have to go into a GP practice or into A&E where you might infect more people. Now, for the people coming back from Wuhan itself, we've put them into quarantine just because the risks for people coming from Wuhan are that much higher.
Again, there is a second plane going back, and is that the last plane?
That's the current proposal, yes. I mean, we're keeping all these things under review and being guided by the science. But we propose this is the last plane to bring people back from Wuhan, and we're giving people the time to organise and make sure that they can come back if they want to come back. And then when they get here, because they've been in Wuhan, which is the epicenter of this virus and this epidemic in China, they will then be put into quarantine. There's been a huge effort to find those who've returned from Wuhan before the Chinese took the very, very strong measures to quarantine the whole of that city. And as you know, so far there's only 2 people who've tested positive in the UK. We're running tests all of the time, and those 2 people have been isolated, quarantined, and are being treated by the NHS.
And how are they doing?
Well, I'm not going to go into patient details, but they're being treated appropriately and properly. And the central message here is that we have a plan in place. And the plan for treating and looking after those 2 people who have coronavirus here in the UK, that plan is working. We are expecting more cases of coronavirus here in the UK. We think that with the spread of this disease, thankfully so far, very largely contained in China. It's still spreading, though, to other countries around the world, including in France and Germany, where they have a dozen cases each, around a dozen. And so we do expect more than 2 cases in total here, but we have a plan in place to deal with the virus as it spreads, to do everything we can. And the approach that we take is that we take no chances with this virus, and we're guided by the science.